Alright, I'm just gonna do a audio check as usual. Let's see. Audio check as usual. Alright, so my audio seems good. So we're just gonna continue on CSS on what we've been doing, and kind of after we go here into the project, it's gonna be kind of a review period, but I don't want to get too ahead. But let's just continue. Last time we finished the entire thing. So now we're gonna go on this. Alright, so as you've seen in previous projects, web pages should start with a doc type title declaration, followed by an HTML element. Add a doc type declaration at the top of the document, and an HTML element after that. Give the HTML element a lang attribute with n as its value. So yeah, so kind of how the reason for this is it was kind of explained in other tutorials, but it's so that if it recognizes it's English, then it can translate languages to it can translate the web page to other languages. So if it knows it's English, then it can translate it to Spanish, it can translate it to, any other language. Let's just add this. One moment. Alright, it's actually kind of was forgetting the exact syntax for it. I think that should be it. And the lang attribute should be here. It should be n. Alright, one moment. Okay, so the code isn't passing. Alright, I'm just gonna dig into another tutorial to see if they have the correct syntax. Oh, okay, so it's doc type HTML, and then it's a separate HTML for the opening and closing. Alright, I think I know what to do. HTML. Okay, and then the language is going to be English. Alright, so, yeah, so, I want to kind of explain that. Kind of got confused with the syntax here. So to declare the doc type, it's a separate thing. So it's exclamation mark doc type HTML. So it looks like that, and then it's a separate HTML where you set the language to English. So that happens in the HTML tag. Okay, yeah, I kind of forgot the syntax a little bit, but yeah. So moving on. Nest a head element. Nest a head element within the HTML element. Alright. So here's the head element. So when you say nested, it means it's within it. And then right after the head, add a body. So right here. So I think that's what it wanted me to do. Alright. Remember that title element that gives search engines extra information about the page. It's also what shows up on the tab. So if I made the title this website, that would actually be displayed here also. It also tells browsers what text to display in the title bar when the page is open. Yep, so that's what I just said on the tab of the page. Within the head element, nest a title element within the text colored markers. Okay. So the title element goes here. And let's get the exact text. And that should be what I wanted us to do. Tell browsers how to encode characters on your page. Set the jar set to UFT8. UFT8 is a universal character set that includes almost every character from all human languages. Inside the head element, nest a meta element with the attribute jar set to UFT8. Remember that meta element are self-closing and do not need a closing tag. Okay. This is a meta element, and let's just see if it works. Alright, so what I think it does is it basically imports. It's kind of like, imagine emojis, how your phone kind of would have to, I mean, it's coming from somewhere, right? You know, where, you'll have like, happy emoji, a sad emoji. That phone gets that information from somewhere. It's kind of a similar thing where websites get that information, only its characters. So it's kind of a similar thing. Another self-closing meta element within the head. Add another one. Alright. Viewport. Oh. Name. So giving an attribute name. Setting it to viewport. And content getting set to width equals device width and initial scale equals 1.0. that what it wanted me to do. Did I make a typo? And the name attribute set to viewport. Okay, so that's what it wanted us to do. So yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't understand 100%, the syntax, but essentially this code, does make it so that the content will display the same on all the devices. Alright, now we're ready to start adding content to the page. So within the body, nest in h1 element. Within the text, CSS color. So right here, this is going to be the content. This project, you'll work with an external CSS file to style the page. You've already created a styles.css file for you. So that's here, apparently. Before you can use it, you'll need to link it to the page, right? So nest a link element within the head element and give it a relative attribute set to style sheet and an href linking to this. So basically, it's kind of similar to link, where if you click a link, you would use an anchor element and you would link it to the file within the same folder. So we actually need to connect this to this in order to use this code here. So here's the link element. Alright. So say you link a external style sheet. As a reminder, here's how to target a paragraph element. and align it to the right. Create a new CSS rule that targets the H1 element and set its text align property to the center. So I think we can do that. So instead, yep, so, oh, it has to be an H1 selector. Okay. Alright, so the code passes. So this will make it so that every heading of H1, so that's the biggest kind of heading, it's going to have this property. And you'll add some elements that you'll eventually style into color markers. First, within the body, add a div element and set its class attribute to container. Make sure the div element is below the H1 element. So I suspect this isn't a class that's created yet. So we're going to create it. Yeah, so far, we're 9 in of a 94 part tutorial. I'm gonna try to see if I can finish this by the end of the stream. I think if you collapse, it actually says how far you're in, so we're 9% in. Alright, so next within the div, add another div element and give it a class marker. Okay. So within the div, add another div. Alright. So we've done that. Now step 11, it's time to add some code. Add some color to the marker. Remember that one way to add color to an element is to use a color keyword like black. I don't know how to pronounce it as a cyan or yellow. As a reminder, here's how to target the class FreeCodeCamp. So create a new CSS rule that targets the class marker and set its background color property to red. So do that. It's going to be marker. The background color is going to be red. So that should be it. So right now we created this class. Now step 12 is the background color was applied, but since the marker development is empty, it doesn't have any height by default. So in your marker CSS rule, set the height property to 25 pixels. Alright. And the width to 200 pixels. Alright, so that's done. Marker would look better if it was centered on the right on the page. The easy way to do that is with the margin shorthand property. Okay, the last project you set the margin area of elements separately with properties like margin top, left. Oh, I think I know where they're going with this. But you can have just one property, and then kind of how you type it in, it'll kind of in the order you type in the numbers. It'll be either top, it'll be top, right, bottom, or left. Yeah, or what they're saying is if you do set just margin in general to one property, it'll imply that all of them have the same property. So I'll center it. Alright, the code passes. Now that you've got one marker centered with color, it's time to add the other markers. In the container div, add 2 more div elements and give each a class of marker. So it just wants 2 more of these, I think. Yep. Alright. Well, you have 3 separate marker div elements. They look like one big rectangle. You should add some space between them to make it easier to see each element. When the shorthand margin property has 2 values, it sets margin top, margin bottom to the first value, and margin left and margin right to the second value. So it's like their coordinates. In your dot marker CSS rule, set the margin property to 10px and auto. So what this would do is this would represent the top and bottom, and this would represent the left and right. So it's centered from left and right. Oh, there's no comma. Yeah. Alright, step 16. To give the markers different colors, you will need to add a unique class to each one. Multiple classes can be added to an element by listing them in the class attribute and separating them with a space. For example, the following adds both the animal and dog classes to a div element. So it wants us to create a another div within this. Well, actually, I think it wants to include. I'm actually just gonna read this one more time. Hold on. To give markers different colors, you'll need to add a unique class to each one. Multiple classes. So we're adding a multiple classes. Okay, to an element by listing them in the class attribute. Okay, so I believe that would be done by doing this, and I think they just wanted the first one. Yep. Okay. So we're applying two classes to one element at the same time. Next, remove the background color property and its value from the marker CSS rule. Alright. Create a new CSS rule that targets the class 1, and sets its background color to red. So now we're kind of testing the concept of using multiple classes. To see if it'll work, to see if it'll have the same effect. So right now, all of what we did is gone right now. Set it to red. So the first one looks like it's back. So it says congratulations, code passes. Add the class 2 to the second marker of div. And add 3, so we're just going to continue the concept. Create a CSS rule that targets a class 2 and sets its background color property to green. So it's going to be like red, and then it's going to be green, and then it looks like it's going to be blue. So it's going to look like some kind of flag. So 2 is going to be set to green, and 3 is going to be set to blue. Alright. So now we have those multiple classes in effect. There are two main color models: the additive RGB model used in electronic devices, and the subtractive CMYK. So apparently instead of RGB being red, green, blue, there's another one that uses cyan, and I guess the next one's magenta, and yellow, and I guess K for black. I don't know why K is for black. In this project, you'll work in the RGB model. This means that colors begin as black and change as different levels of red, green, and blue are introduced. It's easy to see this. An easy way to see this is the CSS RGB function. Okay, so create a new CSS rule that targets a class container. Alright, so now we're going to create the container class. So it should be black. I think we should have a semicolon at the end. So contained in a black background. So step 22, a function is a piece of code that can take an input and perform a specific action. The CSS RGB function accepts value or arguments for red, green, and blue and produces a color. Each red, green, and blue value is a number from 0 and 255. 0 means a 0 color, and as black, and 255 means it's 100% of color. In the one CSS rule, replace the color keyword with the RGB function. Alright, so I was kind of worried about they weren't telling us what it was gonna be for red, but I just realized it's RGB. It's red, green, blue. So it's gonna be 255 of red, 0 of green, and 0 of blue, and that should be red. For one instance, this rule should have a background color 255. I think it's my spacing. Is it really just my spacing? Oh, I'm forgetting RGB. Can't forget that. Yeah. Never mind. So now, in the to CSS rule, use the RGB function to set the background color to green. So we can do this. If it's RGB, we don't have to memorize. If it is red, green, and blue, we don't really need to memorize the exact coordinate to make another color, because if it's one of them, we just would say 255 to that one and 0 of the other colors. So, in other words, another way of representing green is it's 0 of red, it's 255, the max value of green. So it's none of red, all of green, and none of blue. So all this is saying is green is none of red, all of green, and none of blue. So that should work. Oh, I didn't finish. So yeah, so continuing on, and RGB for blue is, what is blue? It's none of red, it's none of green, and it's all of blue. So then, now we're done. While the red and blue markers look the same, the green one is much lighter than it was before. That's because the green color keyword is actually a darker shade, and it's about halfway between black and the maximum value of green. Not sure. I'll say that again. While the red and blue markers look the same, the green one is much lighter than it was before. That's because the green color keyword is actually a lot darker shade. Oh, okay. So the actual one, so if you were to type green, it's actually not this, is what they're saying. It is about halfway between black and the maximum value for green. So it's a toned down. So the real green, if you were to just type green, it's a toned down green. So in the to CSS rule, set the green value to 127. So if you see, it's a darker version of green. Or let's go to just 7. Let's go to 7D. Let's go to 100. You're slowly coming back from black and going to green. But in this situation, they want us to go to 127. And just show that as a concept. So congratulations, your code passes. Submit your code to continue. So now add a little more vertical space between your markers and the edge of the container element they're in. So already, we are 25%, so a quarter done. So we started at nothing and now we're at 24. We're just going to keep continuing on, probably until the end. And then this one's shorter, but this is when we're going to be working on registration. Add a little more vertical space between your markers and the edge of the container element they're in. In the container element, CSS rule, use the shorthand padding property to add Alright, so it should be 10 px for top and bottom, and 0 px, or actually it'll just say 0 for left and right, and that should work. So basically they're kind of trying to highlight the concept that the shorthand is the same concept for padding across the board. Oh, I used a comma again. So yeah, you don't actually use a comma. Step 26, the additive RGB color model. Primary colors are colors that When combined, create pure white. Okay, so I think that, yeah, so all the colors combined, that's white, but an absence of color is black. Okay. I thought it was the other way around for some reason. But for this to happen, each color needs to be at its highest intensity. Before you combine colors, set your green marker back to pure green. Alright, so it's going to be 255. Now that you have the primary RGB colors, it's time to combine them. For the RGB function and the container rule, set the red, green, and blue values to the max of 255. You have the primary RGB values, time to combine them. So that's going to create white. That's going to create white. So red and green is yellow, and then it's white. Secondary colors are the colors you get when you combine primary colors. You might have noticed some secondary colors in the last step as you changed the red and green and blue values. So I think the primary colors is red, green, and blue, and basically any other color is a combination of these. To create the first secondary color, yellow, and we kind of saw that, right? But when it turned into yellow, when we were about to change it to red. So it's saying red is pure red. It's saying yellow is pure red and pure green. So it's like on our way, remember to turning it white. Remember when we were on our way to turn it white, we kind of realized that combining red and green made yellow. So that passes. Try to create the next secondary color, cyan. Update the RGB function and the 2 CSS rule to combine pure green and pure blue. So pure green and pure blue. So it's going to be this and this. And this is going to be cyan. Alright. So step 30, create the final secondary color magenta. Update the RGB function and the 3 CSS rule to combine pure blue and pure red. So pure blue is already there. Now pure red. Red is here. So make that 255. And together, that's magenta. And congratulations, your code passes. Step 31. Now that you're familiar with secondary colors, you'll learn how to create, yeah, I can't pronounce this. Is it pronounced tertiary? I don't even know. I'm actually going to try to look up how it's pronounced. I want to pronounce a word that bad. tertiary. Let's hear the pronunciation.
Tertiary. Tertiary.
So tertiary.
Tertiary.
So it's pronounced like tertiary. Tertiary colors are created by combining a primary with a nearby secondary color. To create a tertiary color, orange, update the RGB function in the 1 CSS rule so that red is at its max value, okay, and set green. So here's green, not at 255, but 127. So I think 127 is a halfway point, and that will result in orange. So when it says tertiary, it's not just a full combination of the colors itself, but it's more complex than that. So congratulations, the code passes. Step 32. Decide to create orange. You had to increase the intensity of red and decrease the intensity of green RGB values. This is because orange is a combination of red and yellow and falls between the two colors on the color wheel. To create a tertiary color, spring green, combine cyan with green. Update the function in 2 CSS rule so that green is at its max value, so green is at its max value, and blue is at 127. So that should create spring green. Just kind of with this, you're not using the full color. Create a tertiary color violet, combine magenta with blue, update the RGB function and the 3 CSS rule so that blue is at the max value. Alright, so blue is at the max value, and red is set to 127. Okay. Congratulations, code passes. Right now we're kind of more of a third of the way. There are 3 more tertiary colors. Man, I don't know, it's full of things that are hard to pronounce. Well, is there someone that will pronounce it for us? Oh, no. Create a... I'll actually just do the same thing where I just typed it in again.
Chartreuse.
So it's pronounced
Chartreuse.
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 So it's pronounced chartreuse. So there are three more tertiary colors: chartreuse, green, that's green and yellow, and azure, blue and cyan, and rose, which is red and magenta, to create a
Chartreuse.
chartreuse. Green, update the RGB function and the one rule so that red is at 127 and set green to the max value. So red is at 127 and green is the max value. So that would be this. For azure, update the RGB function and the to rule so that green is at 127. So this is green, making that 127. So it's basically saying that this is half of red, all of green, and none of blue. And this is none of red, half of green, and we're actually going to set this to 255 and all of blue. And this color is half of blue and all of red, and it kind of looks like a purple or pink kind of color. And it looks like the code passed. Now that you've gone through all the primary, secondary, and tertiary colors on a color wheel, it'll be easier to understand other color theory concepts and how they impact design. First are the rules 1, 2, and 3. Adjust the values in the RGB function so that the background color of each element is set to pure black. Remember that RGB function uses the additive color model, where colors start as black and change as the values of red, green, and blue increase. So that you've gone through all the primary, secondary, tertiary colors. Let's just set all the background colors to black. So that would just be zeroed out. Oh, I think I know what they're... Yeah, I don't know. So, I mean, I think they just want us to zero it out, all out. So, 0, 0. Oh. Alright, so I think they just wanted us to zero it all out. I think we might stop at halfway. Might pick up tomorrow. What's it? It's 50%. So probably we'll do. A color wheel is a color, but that's probably what we're gonna do with the tutorials. Color wheel is a circle where similar colors or hues are near each other and different ones are further apart. For example, pure red is between the hues rose and orange. Two colors. Yeah, and actually I'm probably pronouncing hues wrong. Let's see how it's actually pronounced.
Hues. Hues. Hues.
So it's pronounced hues. Okay, so it is pronounced right. For example, pure red is alright. So two colors that are opposite from each other on the color wheel are called complementary colors. If two complementary colors are combined, they produce gray. But when they're placed side by side, these colors produce strong visual contrast and appear brighter. In the RGB function for the one rule, set the red value to the max. So red is 255. That produces pure red. In the RGB function for 2, set the value green to the max. Oh, they want us to set green and blue to the max. So for 1, they want us to set red to the max. And for 2, they want us to set green and blue to the max. I think that's all they said. Yep, code passed. Yeah, so actually I think we're gonna finish it off here and just pick up again, and incrementally we'll finish this. I just don't want to do much at once. That's all for today.